Hello, my name is Edwin Garcia, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I will be reviewing the Sayonara Wild Hearts soundtrack, discussing how the music pairs with the game, and highlighting a few key tracks. Now, before we get into the actual soundtrack, let's talk a little bit about the game. Sayonara Wild Hearts is a rhythm-based game, but ultimately, what it is a pop album you can interact with. Each level is set to a song, and you travel through the level avoiding obstacles, fighting enemies, and collecting hearts. The hearts are the collectible in this game. Think Mario's coins, Sonic's gold rings, like that. At the end of each level, you get a high score and 3 different rankings, either bronze, silver, or gold. Now, personally, I got a lot of bronze rank because I wasn't that good at the game, died a lot, missed a lot of the hearts. But if you get really good at it, if you're comfortable playing these types of games, I'm sure gold rank is possible for you. Now, what I commend the game for is its marriage of the music and the game mechanics. When you are playing this game, you are playing the video game representation of the music. It's this album being expressed in video game form. And that's why I had to talk about the gameplay before I could talk about the soundtrack. Obviously, a good soundtrack will work well with the game and remind you of the moments in the game, but in the case of Sayonara Wild Hearts, the music and gameplay are fused so perfectly that it's virtually impossible to talk about one without the other. If you talk about Sayonara Wild Hearts without mentioning the music, or you talk about the soundtrack without talking about the game, it just feels like half of the conversation is missing. If you're really good at this game, it can be finished in about an hour. If you're like me and you're going to get a few bronze ranks, I'd say hour and a half, 2 hours tops. Ultimately, it's a relatively short game since it's the length of an album, and it has high replay value because you can play each level separately. You can go back and play your favorite levels, go back and try to get that silver rank, get that gold rank. So it's very easy to jump in and play certain parts that you really feel passionate about or want to get better at. Now, let's talk about the soundtrack. Now, one of the first tracks I want to talk about is Clair de Lune. Now, Clair de Lune's a very, very popular classical piece by Claude Debussy. It was released in the early 1900s, so we have so many versions of it, so many great performances of it. It's part of classical canon. It's a song that virtually everyone knows, even if you're not interested in classical music. The minute you hear it, you'll probably say, "Oh, that sounds familiar," or "Oh, I think I've heard this before," because you probably have. And when you have a song like Clair de Lune on this pop album with a lot of, electronic music and electronic music elements and drum patterns and things of that nature, it's very easy to be skeptical of how it'll work or maybe even cringe. I myself, as a musician, I've played Clair de Lune. I've instructed people on how to play Clair de Lune, and I've heard so many versions of it. It's like, how will this be any different? How will this be any more special than those already, right? Why are you covering this? How are you going to accomplish it? And it does a really great job, actually, from the very beginning, just getting you into the world and showing you this song through the lens of the video game Sayonara Wild Hearts. And that really surprised me. I was skeptical when I heard it. I'm like, I don't know how you're going to do this. And it was just magical. It was beautiful. For me, the biggest part of Clair de Lune and how I kind of judge any performance, because I've heard so many, is how do you deal with the transition when it goes into that arpeggio section? How do you perform that? How do you capture that feeling? What kind of feeling do you want to capture, and how do you express it? And when that part comes in, it just sounds so magical and beautiful and wonderful. And the way it harmonizes with the actual visuals is really powerful. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, this is really good. This is really special. And it was the first moment early in the game where I really felt like, okay, this could be a really good game if we're going to keep doing this kind of work. So that's one of the songs I think even by itself, if you just want to hear it, it's great. But it's early in the game, so I highly recommend if you're going to jump into this game, pay attention when Clair de Lune comes on. You'll know because it's one of the early levels if you've heard the song before, or once you see that butterfly show up, that's when it's pretty much starting. So keep an eye out for that in the first 10-15 minutes of the game. Next song I want to talk about is Begin Again, where Linnea Olsen sings beautifully and wonderfully, and to me it's my favorite track on the soundtrack, period. It's very powerful, and the really amazing thing is when it's playing in the game and when you play that level where that song is featured, I think it's probably one of the best moments in the entire game. the way that's combined together and how it shows you all the different types of elements that you're going to do, it's really a great representation of what that game is. You're traveling through the world, you're battling, you're like exploring, there's different transitions that introduce you to different sections. It kind of shows you all the kinds of things we're going to do in the game. Not everything, because there are some different mechanics and different challenges that show up later in the game that don't show up in the level of Begin Again. But I really feel like that's where I knew the game was special. It was going from, oh, I think I might like this too. No, this is a really special experience, and it's really amazing what I'm going through right now. That's the first song that really hit me like that, and even hearing the song by itself, it's just fantastic. The lyrics are amazing. The transitions between the chorus and the verses, and the background vocals near the end, it's just phenomenal. And I think personally, if you can get to Begin Again, which is around the 15-20 minute mark or so, I think like the 4th or 5th level of Sayonara Wild Hearts, and you're not captivated, you're not entranced, you kind of were like, whatever. I think at that point it's okay to say, hey, you don't have to keep playing the game, because you've probably at least given it an honest shot. And if that didn't get you, along with Debussy and all the other pieces and levels that came before it, I think it's safe to say maybe this isn't something you're interested in. But I would definitely say play that level. It's super special. It's probably the strongest level in my opinion in the game, and it really encapsulates the spirit of Sayonara Wild Hearts, the soundtrack and the video game, perfectly. And finally, the last piece I want to talk about is actually the final stage of the game, which is when they have a medley of a bunch of different tracks. And I won't go into specifics on those tracks because I don't want to spoil the game for you or anything like that. So I'll keep it vague, but I'll just say that I think it wraps up in a very satisfying way, and kind of all the things you do at the end of the game and how the music's incorporated with it, I think is really powerful. And it was a very nice ending. It's a nice long song, and because it's a medley, so it's just kind of playing multiple melodies and themes wrapped all into one. So I think it's really, really powerful ending. And it's one of the highlights of the game is the ending of the game, and many games struggle with that, right? You have great moments, but by the end you kind of were done with it, or they don't stick the landing, as they say, which means that the lead up to what we're actually working towards, does that get resolved in a satisfying way? And I feel like in Sayonara Wild Hearts, it really does end in a satisfying way in terms of like the gameplay, the final stage, the music in the stage. Everything really comes together nicely, and it left me satisfied with the experience that I had, and ultimately ended it on a banger for me. So I really enjoyed the ending there. So my closing thoughts here on the soundtrack. Obviously, I think the soundtrack is phenomenal, wonderful. I do think you can listen to it by itself, but really, if you're interested in the video games at all, you should definitely play it. It's available on Apple Arcade, so if you already have an Apple Arcade subscription, which for those who don't know, Apple Arcade is a subscription service for video games on your iPhone or iPad. It's, I believe, $4.99 with a free month, so you can even try it for free for a month. See if you like it, play the game. You don't like it, you don't have to renew. I have Apple Arcade. That's how I played it. I know people who've played it on Switch and Xbox One, PS4, or Switch. Sorry, I know people who've played it on Switch and PS4, Apple Arcade myself. I'm not sure if it's on Xbox One. I assume it is, but I'm not 100% sure. I would say the only person I could not recommend it to, who's already a quote-unquote gamer, would be someone who just really, really hates rhythm-based games and just refuses to try one or play one, or just has no open mind whatsoever. In that instance, okay, I guess this isn't for you, and you probably already know that. Other than that, it's really, I recommend it for everyone. I don't see, not that I don't see anyone who wouldn't like it, because you'll find someone who doesn't like money, like it doesn't matter. You'll find someone, but ultimately anyone has an open mind and is willing to give it a try, it's fantastic. I recommend having some headphones on, because I think you really want to be entranced in the world, and the best way to do that is just to put headphones on. It's a music-based game, it's a rhythm-based game. You're going to want to have, headphones on, I think, just to hear it. Now, I'm not, even though I'm an audio person, I'm a musician myself, I don't try to, shame people for not having good headphones or things like that. Obviously, the better the headphones, the better. But even if it's, Apple, standard headphones that we all have, put them on, go ahead and just try to get in the world. That's why I really liked playing it on my iPad, because I could just put the screen to my face, have the headphones on, and really zone in. Obviously, with a big screen TV on the Switch or something like that, that can happen as well. Maybe just blast it a little bit, and really try to have it there. Don't just have the music, playing in the background. You're just focusing on the game elements. Really try to make sure you can really hear the music well at a good volume for you, where you feel like you can be, have like this zen-like feeling where you're in the game, hearing the music, and you're interacting with that music in the game, and you really feel like you're one with it, because this game does a phenomenal job with that. I can't think of another game that accomplishes the fusion of music with gameplay as well as Sayonara Wild Hearts. So obviously I highly recommend the soundtrack. Definitely think everyone should listen to that. I think everyone should play the game, and I hope you've enjoyed this review. It's the first review of a game I've done here. Obviously this is a music channel, so I always try to look at it from a music element. I don't know if I'll do more of these reviews. If you like it, let me know so I can do more, or I can come up with other games that I would like to do this for. So thank you for making it to the end of the video. Please check out the Sayonara Wild Hearts soundtrack. It's available on Apple Music, Spotify, all streaming platforms essentially. And make sure to try the game if you're interested. It's on Switch, it's on PS4, it's on Apple Arcade. It's a phenomenal experience, and I highly recommend it. So if you like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you at the next one. All right, later.